What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video. And today, the psychopath Ian Cummings, friend of the show, dropped a 7-round mock draft on PFN's website. So I am here to review it. It's going to be a long one. It's going to be a fun one. If you all like the 2024 NFL draft or any draft content in general, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. I do all this stuff all the time. Below my face is my board. There's a particular person once again in the top 5. Actually at number 3, who I think is absolutely spectacular. Remember, when I love a player, I love a player. I'm not trying to shame because I think that actually up to Olu Fashanu, I think all these guys are relatively top tier. Let's just say that before I use the word generational. But we do have quite a few guys in this class who are super spectacular. So we're going to be doing a lot of stuff on that. And at the end of this, I'm going to attach a nice, amazing little interview with Brennan Jackson, who went toe-to-toe versus our beloved Talise Fuaga. And he's actually going to give us a nice rundown of it and just in general about all this fun stuff. So feel free to stay to the end to check that out because I just literally will tag it at the end. Let's get into this. It's awesome. Let's go because it's going to be a pain in the ass, but I love y'all. And that's why I do this, because we're going to rip our hair out. So starting out with Chicago. I assume this is before, Caleb Williams is going to deny going to the Chicago Bears, but Justin Fields had a really good day today against the Broncos. Actually, the game is still going on while I did this because my heart is being ripped out as a Steelers fan and I couldn't handle it anymore. So we're going to rip out my vocal cords doing this instead. But at this moment, this is going to be the draft order. Don't get mad at me for it. So there you go. But Bears going Caleb Williams, if they're at the number 1 pick at this point, it's worth it. Justin Fields at least is showing a little bit of potential, which means maybe you get some good trade value from there, but he's nothing compared to Caleb Williams. I just hate to say it. Doesn't matter even if he's performing as well as he's ever done in his career. It still doesn't give you an excuse not to go after arguably the best quarterback that we've ever seen come out of college, because he is spectacular. Caleb Williams is a beast, big fan of his game. Bears also have the number 2 overall selection, and they go Marvin Harrison Jr. Can't blame them for that either. Darnell Mooney's up for a contract. Chase Claypool's going to be gone. You're pretty much going to have DJ Moore and then Marvin Harrison Jr., and that's a pretty good duo. Do not discount my number 4 player in the draft, Brock Bowers, because he is going to be an electric weapon for y'all as well. You can even line him outside at wide receiver if you would like, but Marvin Harrison Jr. to me is a little bit more special, and that's not saying very much because both are absolutely dynamic, amazing weapons. Pick number 3, the Broncos go Dallas Turner. That defense is absolute butt cheeks. I don't think that going after a top 3 edge rusher is going to fix it. I feel like they need to do similar to what the Rams did this year and just go a lot of value picks on that defense because they need help. I don't get it. You have guys like Pat Surtain, Justin Simmons, even rookies like Drew Sanders, and there are plenty of dudes on that defense. This team should not be performing this poorly. Maybe it's a defensive coordinator issue. I mean, to be honest, maybe they need just a corner number 2. I don't know. I don't. I genuinely don't know how one player or maybe 2 players can fix a defense that's arguably the worst performing defense of all time. It doesn't make sense. You have stars on that defense. To be fair, so do the Steelers, and we're playing like ass. But it's very frustrating. If you're at this point, I just would honestly feel really bad. I'd personally just try to trade back and get as many future picks as possible. You got guys like Drake May on the board and Brock Bowers who could be very, very intriguing targets for certain teams. So gotta just shout that out where it is. Also, by the way, I'm a huge fan of Talise Fuaga. So yes, I know nobody on planet Earth will have him remotely within even their top 30. I have him as a generational level prospect, have him as Trent Williams. The only other spot probably on the whole internet that loves him remotely close to what I do is PFN. So just got to shout that out. He's probably going to be here in round number 2 or 3. So going to be fun to see that. But Dallas Turner is a spectacular player. To me, he was top 5. I ended up just moving Olu and Talise above him. I didn't move him down. I just moved other guys up who are performing really, really well. He's performing well too. I can't really knock him down at all. He's been absolutely dynamite. He's a special player, but it's just a weird spot for the Broncos, man. Really weird spot. Raiders going J.C. Latham. I'm not a big fan of J.C. Latham personally. I think he has a motor concern. He gives up early on a lot of plays. I don't vibe with that, especially when you're protecting my quarterback. So I'm going to naturally be a little bit against offensive tackles that just don't have a high motor. That being said, he is extremely talented. He's extremely versatile. I do like what he could be. But the issue is this is a personality concern, not a talent concern. I don't know how many times in the NFL that personality concerns from college, especially when it comes to giving up early, ends up going the other way, especially when you're on a team like the Raiders where you don't necessarily have a lot of stability. You don't have a leader like Bill Belichick whooping your ass. So I hope JC Latham goes to an organization where he can get his mentality checked. But also, I mean, if he ends up going to a team like the Raiders, one, he's not going to go this early if he ends up, giving up early on reps. But if he does end up earning this early of a situation or of a pick, I hope to God that he ends up checking himself and he actually ends up performing the way he should because he's a talented player. I just don't like tackles that give up early on a lot of those reps. Cardinals going Drake May. I don't think the Cardinals would take Drake May at this point. I just personally don't. Again, I love Ian. He's a good guy. Again, friend of the show. But I'm going to be extremely harsh because that's what I'm a tough lover. And, when it comes to stuff like this, I'm going to be on you, Ian. I'm going to be on you. Just like Ian Valentino, who is also part of PFN, who did the other 7-round mock draft. Y'all are insane for doing it. Love y'all for being able to somehow, some way have the mental fortitude to do this. But, I'm going to call it out where it is. I don't think that you're going to get rid of Kyler Murray if you're at number 5. I mean, it's still good value to get Drake May. I don't know if you can get Drake and then trade him to another team. That'd be intriguing to see how that goes. But I doubt that they would go this route. Again, it's a nitpick. At the end of the day, we're having fun here, but I don't think that with all the dead cap, like the real question is Caleb Williams or Kyler Murray. And I still was saying, hey, trade out, get Kyler Murray, a ton of potential capital and fix up the defense. This team is performing way better than anybody could have ever expected. They beat the Cowboys, who are Super Bowl competitors. So I don't think Drake May is the answer for that. Then we had number 6, the Commanders going Shedeur Sanders. So intriguing QB3. I do like Shedeur Sanders a lot. You guys can check out my video from a long time ago. I had him as my QB5 coming into the year before he ever took a snap at Colorado. That was one of my guys who I just had really big faith in. He's not going to be coming out this year. There's probably going to 2 considerable losses in a row. Not necessarily, just not performing at the level that he needs to elevate an NFL roster. And when Daddy Prime is saying, hey, he's going to stay another year, he needs a little bit more seasoning. He's performing very well, but NFL ready, that's the bigger question. I still have him as a top 32 player. I still think he can be. But when you have already questions from Prime himself as to saying whether he's even going to remotely come out, and then, they thrive on the chip on their shoulder, this is exactly the type of, vengeance that Shedeur needs to be able to come back. But, still, very fun idea. I do like Shedeur Sanders. I think if the Commanders are here at number 6, they would be open to a QB, but I don't think that they will be after. Right now, at least, they're tied up with the Eagles. Pick number 7, the Colts go Keon Coleman. I don't know if a wide receiver is that big of an issue for him. I think Michael Pittman Jr. will be back. If he's not, then that's a different story. Obviously, then Keon Coleman's an excellent selection. I know my Colts fans have been begging for me to go after Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman. But at the same time, I just got to say, I assume they'll bring Pittman back. I assume they'll at least franchise tag him. But we'll see what happens there. If they don't, this is a good pick. Next, we have the Jets going Joe Alt. I think going offensive tackle is a brilliant move for the Jets. Not going to complain about that. A lot of people say go QB. I think that you're just pretty much giving Aaron Rodgers the middle finger. That's not right. He might even be back this year, and that's insane. But Cam Akers came back from very similar injury with the same surgeon not too much longer after what the playoffs would start for the Jets. So intriguing to say the least. Vikings then going Michael Penix. I love Michael Penix in purple. I love it, and I think this is a great spot for him to be. Very excited to see where Michael Penix ends up, but I really hope it's here. Next, we have the Cardinals going Malik Neighbors. Malik is actually moving up my board considerably because I assume the team that will draft him will put him in the situation that fits him best. And that's a ballsy claim for me to make because we see a lot of QBs, a lot of receivers, a lot of edge rushers being put into situations that aren't necessarily the best for them. So just got to call it out as it is. Malik Neighbors does fit a particular role. Holistically, as a wide receiver, he still needs to be a better route runner, but he is elite when it comes to his deep threat ability and after the catch. He's a very fun weapon. I think he's a monster in college. I don't know if he has the route running ability to separate at the next level. He does have the athleticism to separate the next level, though. So, great player. I don't really think that this is the one. I don't think you need to take him in the top 10. This is a very deep receiver class, but I don't disagree that going wide receiver is a bad idea or is a good idea. I think it's a smart idea for the Cardinals, just maybe a little bit early for someone who's a little bit more role specific. But all 22 is coming out for Malik Neighbors soon, so we will be able to review that, and then we'll be able to update it, because that's the best part of it, is like when we get some more all 22, for those of y'all who don't know, one, I am always honest. I might not always be 100% correct, but the one thing I owe you is honesty. I'll tell you who the player is, and even if I'm a little bit harsh on players at the start, you see me warm up to players as they progress. And for me, I appreciate the distance of where they were to where they are now a lot more than me being all fluffy and nice and saying this is where they're going to be. Because where they're going to be when I'm talking about it in the offseason is complete bullshit. That's just me saying, oh, this is where they should be. Sorry, that's just not who I am. I don't think that's good scouting. I think good scouting is saying, hey, this is the player they are. We know the player that they could be. And this is how far they've come to be that player. So, like, when it comes to specific guys, I owe you at least that honesty. And with like Malik Neighbors, that's a great example of it. But more importantly, when it comes to honesty, I don't review quarterbacks. I don't review wide receivers. I don't review DBs without all 22 tape, coaching tape, because I think it's critical to understand how they perform on the whole route or the whole play for the quarterback side. And that requires more than just a normal broadcast footage. So I usually tend to wait, especially that's why I have still, Joe Milton here at 14. I see some spectacular plays. Oh, we got this thing again. I'll deal with that in a second. But Joe Milton's still at 14 because I'm waiting for some more all 22 before I either still side with my opinion or end up going off of it and changing his positioning on my board. But that's one of the reasons also why I get excited about a guy like Malik Neighbors. But we will be right back after we take out the block notifications. Okay, so the Falcons at number 11 take J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan. I like J.J. I think his mobility actually offers quite a bit in an Arthur Smith system. I don't know if Arthur Smith is the best guy for the long run in this system or in this whole entire franchise, but it is what it is. J.J. is a perfect fit. I think he's a better version of Desmond Ridder. I was not high on Desmond Ridder coming out in the first place. And to be fair, he also was like kind of the one who ruined all my excitement when I was in my earlier years of college at SMU, because we'd always be off into like the top 25, and then, Cincinnati comes into town and absolutely shellacks us, but it is what it is. Desmond Ridder, I never was a huge fan of him in the first place, but that's okay. I don't think he's the guy. I don't think a lot of these quarterbacks are going to be the guys for their respective franchises. There's only 32 that are going to start. Well, maybe like if injuries and other stuff occur, maybe up to 40. And, every single year we talk about the top 10 quarterbacks, and, certain guys I just don't see the it factor with. I didn't see it with Desmond Ridder. He doesn't seem to be the guy. I do see the it factor with J.J. McCarthy, though. I still think there's a lot of issues similar to Desmond Ridder. Like sometimes the decision making's not there, sometimes the ball placement's not there, but I see the higher ceiling on J.J. McCarthy. So I feel like it would essentially be Desmond Ridder plus extra in the tank that you're really looking for in this offense, and maybe he'll actually target his tight ends. So got to throw that in there. Tampa Bay going to no way. Bullshit. Okay, by the way, this is a live reaction. Bullshit. Oh my God. Hallelujah. Okay, so yeah. Life is good. Life is good. Oh, I need to do more PFN mock draft reviews. Just gets my dopamine and my serotonin right through the roof. God bless you, Ian. So, yeah, okay. There you go. Talise Fuaga, to me, is a generational level prospect. I have him graded as one of the 390 pluses of all time in my grading scale. Now, different grading scales are a little bit more harsher than others. Tackle is very difficult. It is a very difficult grading scale. Of course, it's a little bit easier than, quarterback where, arm strength, it's much easier to be the best pass blocker of all time compared to the strongest arm of all time, because the strongest arm of all time is not needed for the best quarterback. Caleb Williams still has a great arm, but Caleb Williams is 86.5, by far the highest graded quarterback that I've ever graded. Talise is the highest graded tackle I've ever graded. Not by a significant margin, but by enough of a margin to be noticeable. He's just unbelievable. Pairing him up with Tristan Wirfs is ridiculous. I'm speechless in the best way possible. So thank you, Ian, for that. I genuinely believe Talise Fuaga is going to be someone extremely special. I do know somebody who is on Oregon State. So right now, Ryan, if you're seeing this, please, for the love of God, 1, look at Snapchat, but 2, let's get this interview going, because Talise is, well, like, people are starting to hop on the hype train, and we need to do it ASAP. Titans going Olu Fashanu. So I'm honestly quite surprised that Olu went after Talise. I mean, I know that different sides of the offensive line, but even Olu going after Joe Alt, to me, doesn't really fully matter. I feel like regardless, if you go Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu, you're going to be perfectly fine. So is what it is. Tennessee Titans get a great pick. Now we got the Giants going Kool-Aid McKinstry, A+ move. Just continuing to boost your secondary is never a bad idea. Then you're going to have 2 top-tier corners who fit a Wink Martindale defense, because back-to-back first-round picks, like Banks and McKinstry, that's a nasty duo. You got a lot of the strength of McKinstry with the athleticism of Banks. It's going to be awesome. Steelers are going to need Emeka Egbuka. We need everything. Honestly, at this point, I would be in the mood for potentially looking at a quarterback like Bo Nix. I think he's like pretty much Mitchell Trubisky, but what he should have been as a number 3 or number 2 overall pick. So good for Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix would be an excellent addition to the Steelers offense, but we'll see. I think that, of course, it takes a long time to put one of these together, and this dropped yesterday, but we'll see if Ian takes a QB for us, because as y'all don't know, or already know, maybe don't know, I am a Steelers fan, and Emeka Egbuka would be a great Steeler. We are potentially going to be losing Deontay Johnson because he might actually want to win. And right now, it doesn't look like we're going to be on the up. But I do think Kalen King might be a better selection because you pair him up with Joey Porter Jr. And then, we're pretty much relying on Levi Wallace, who's been absolute butt cheeks. And then also Pat Pete, who's getting old. So I think that Kalen King is the better pick, but I'm not going to complain too much. Brock Bowers should be gone a long time ago, but, is what it is. It reminds me of back in the day when I used to take Kyle Pitts to the New England Patriots whenever he fell in my mock drafts. It does not mean that, again, Brock Bowers is a blue chip talent to Ian, so don't get on his ass for that. Don't get on my ass for that either. But, regardless, still a very valuable player. I want to zoom in a little bit more potentially, just because this is irritating the living hell out of my eyes. Ew, that looks even worse, doesn't it? It does. No, we're gonna go back. We're reverting back to our other way. We're gonna go 250. That's okay. But then the Rams go Chop Robinson. I just uploaded my video for an All-Pro 2024 NFL Draft team. Actually, I uploaded the first one and then it got cut short by YouTube. Thank you, YouTube. And then I had to re-upload it, so RIP to the views, but that is A-okay. Y'all have been showing plenty of love. But I go in depth as to what I love about Chop Robinson, because he's ascending my board pretty damn fast. Big fan of Chop Robinson right there. I think that the Rams could certainly use somebody with that high-level talent. I think this would be one of the spots, if Aaron Donald chooses to stay, that he ends up being an extreme success. But it really depends on where Chop goes as to whether he's going to be one of the biggest what-if stories that I have, or whether he's going to be a top 10 edge rusher in the NFL. It's one of the two. That's why I'm a little bit weary about being over the moon about Chop, because the inconsistency is still there, but you see the flashes getting better and better and better. So very excited to see what Chop can do, and I think this would be a good spot, especially if AD decides to remain. It is AD, yes. Fun fact, I saw Aaron Donald in person actually at a Kroger. Was it Kroger? No, it was Ralph's. He had a whole freaking shopping cart of Slim Jims. He was eating one in line. It was quite wild. Interesting to see someone who is arguably the best player in his position respectively, just in person, because he's not that tall. And you're like, they're very human. But cool small story right there. Green Bay Packers going to Marius Mims. I don't doubt it at all. I do think that with David Bakhtiari potentially going to get poached to the Jets, because we already know Aaron Rodgers can do whatever he can. But also, you never know what's going to happen there. You could always get a guy like Amarius Mims who will probably be able to kick to the left tackle side regardless. You can use him at right tackle, and I'd prefer having Zach Tom at left tackle, even though he's performing really well. You could still just say, yo, you've played very well at left tackle. You can kick there too. I'd prefer that. I don't think Amarius Mims is a bad pick by any stretch. He's just super high ceiling. It's another Georgia player that you can add to your roster, but more importantly, it's offensive line help. You're never going to go wrong with getting offensive line help, and he's super young, super developmental. Donovan Jackson just let up 4 pressures. I think it was a week and a half ago, and to me, I'm not super excited about that. He's extremely raw, great athlete, honestly should be a tackle. And with the Saints deciding to use their money on Cesar Ruiz, I doubt that this will be a high priority for them because I'm pretty sure they play the exact same position too. A little bit worried about that. I think the Saints should be targeting wide receiver. They should be targeting everything at this point, but it is what it is. Texans going Andrew Makuba. I do think that safety role with Jimmy Ward will be pretty much open, but I still think that having some competition in there is very good. I don't like Andrew Makuba that much. I think there are better defensive backs on the board, but again, not going to over nitpick on that. We got to speed this up a little bit. Otherwise, my vocal cords are going to be absolutely dry within the next 3 minutes, just like your girl. Jacksonville Jaguars going Jared Verse is ridiculous value. I think Jared Verse, like you see it on my board, he is a top 10 player easily. I think I'm definitely going to move him above Braylon Trice. I just need to reevaluate Braylon Trice at this moment. So that's why I'm waiting to knock him down a little bit. But Jared Verse, obviously at this point, would be absolutely ridiculous. If he gets an ACL tear, maybe he'll be at the spot. And knock on wood, that does not happen. But then we got the Bengals going Kingsley Suamataia out of BYU. I think that he's had just a little too much in terms of struggles as a left tackle. For those of y'all who don't know, actually, I have him pulled up right here. Like, hallelujah, he's done pretty well the past 2 weeks, but starting out a little bit slow. He's getting more comfortable, and that's really what matters more than anything because, again, you're switching sides. So it's good to see that he is progressing, but I do think that his strength is at the right tackle spot, which is also a need for the Bengals. So I'm fine with that personally. Seahawks going Jerzon, Johnny Newton. They need help on the defensive interior. It's a great value pick. Baltimore Ravens, Troy Franklin. They don't need more receiver help. I love you, Ian, but, to be fair, the Ravens don't need much, but I don't know how many more receivers you can select for Lamar before you start saying Lamar is a problem, because he's not actually, Lamar's a good QB. Not trying to say that at all, but this team has surrounded him with some really, really damn good weapons. If you want to give him Johnny Newton, Johnny Wilson, then that's a different story because it's a unique build, a wide receiver. Troy Franklin's not going to be something that's novel to the Ravens. I love Troy Franklin, but I just don't think there's much of a need right there. Eagles and going Princely. So another guy who I actually highlight and I actually regraded today, and he's graded the exact same as Chop Robinson for me. He is very, very good, and he's ascending as well. He found a new gear in his motor, and I love to see it. Good man. The Eagles could definitely use somebody who's at that 256 frame as well. Good player. Really good player, and especially if they want to use him from like wide nine situation, you can do it too because he's athletic. So very excited. Detroit Lions going Kalen Carson. Again, waiting for all 22 on Kalen Carson, but very excited to see it. He's been super fluid in the drills that I have seen. I'm intrigued, and I think this is a big need for the Lions. Next, we got the Bills going Romo Dunze. Again, another player who I'm still waiting for more All-22 tape to come out on. The All-22 I've seen. Not super enthused about him as an NFL prospect. I think he's an amazing college wide receiver, but at the same time, I'm still waiting on tape. My opinion is never solidified until all the tape is watched because I think that's arrogant to hold on to a decision or an opinion that isn't backed up by the evidence of my eyes. And again, I owe you honesty, and I'm going to tell you what I see with my eyes. There's very limited All-22 out there. The All-22 did not excite me. I'm just going to put that out there. But great frame, and he's proven to be a really good athlete. The Bills could use somebody like that, and he's a good complement to the receivers they have. I'm not going to take Rome in the first round. I don't think I'd take him in the second round. But again, one, my opinion may easily change the more tape I watch. But more importantly, and number two, this is a good fit, and that's just me. And it's okay. Dallas Cowboys going Kalen King. They need a corner, and Kalen King is a top 10 player for me. Is he still a top 10 player? Oh, he's number 12 now. Whatever. I got some guys who I fell in love with. It is what it is. He's an amazing corner, and the Cowboys could use it. Chiefs going Mason Smith, a little bit light for that D tackle spot. I do love the upside though, and I personally think I have taken Mason Smith to the Chiefs, so I am a supporter. I think that Tyleik Williams is a better choice, but again, who gives a damn? It's still a good pick. Niners going Cedric Van Pran. I'm not a fan of Cedric Van Pran. I regraded him, and he is significantly worse than what I wanted to give him credit for. Just a lot of whiffs and a lot of mistakes, but again, I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying I thought that he was pretty much a first-round center, and that's pretty hard to do. And right now I'm saying he's probably like a third. But still, talented player. My number 2 center in the draft. If you want to count Graham Barton in there, I need to regrade him through the lens of a pure center because I just haven't seen that ability to just command an offensive line from the center position. It's something that I have a very tough time being able to grade, but I think Graham Barton is a better selection for the Niners, but not going to complain too much. Dolphins then going Byron Murphy the second. He's been on a tear this year. Very good player. Does not have an official grade yet, but very excited to give him one. Let's move this faster. Tyleik Williams to the Bears. After taking 2 D tackles last year, be surprising to see them take another one, but I don't think it's a bad move by any stretch. I wasn't a fan of the 2 that they took in the first place, even though they're not bad players, just really rich for the value. And Tyleik Williams, this is a good spot for him. A.D. Mitchell to the Panthers. I feel like actually having someone like Xavier Worthy or a legitimate deep threat is what you can do to best help out Bryce. I think giving him a lot of separation so he can see the separation a lot better is it's more effective. We'll see if that's actually empirical than anything, but Bryce has had a tough time, and I'd be surprised if A.D. Mitchell was the one to unlock that ability in him. Then you got the Saints going Karen Kitchens. That's an amazing value at a position that they could definitely use. Next, we got the Raiders going Bo Nix. At this point, I think that's very solid value. We'll see how Aiden O'Connell plays today because he's actually probably starting in about like 10, 15 minutes. So hopefully he performs well because I have him on one of my fantasy teams because I was a big supporter of Aiden O'Connell. But at the same time, this is excellent value. At the very minimum, you're making a really good quarterback competition. So I don't think competition breeds negativity as long as it's looked at as like, hey, this was just so good we couldn't pass on it. I'm a big fan of Bo Nix. Have him right here at 23 on my overall board. Spectacular player and just somebody who I have a lot of faith in as a game manager. He would work really well in this system. We'll see if Aiden O'Connell can elevate the roster though and make it not worth taking him. Cardinals going Denzel Burke is excellent value, my number 24 player taken right here. Next, we got the Commanders going Braylon Trice. So still have him as a top 10 player, has not produced it the way I wanted him to, but again, looking at statistics is one thing. I want to see a little bit more all 22 to understand why he is. All 22 is not necessary for D-line grading, but when a player is taking, I think he's right now a third of the pressure rate that he had last year. Like his pass rush snaps compared to the pressures, not the designated pass rush snaps, like where it's like a guaranteed pass rush, but just he has been far less efficient this year, and I want to see a little bit more why. But still, excellent pick. Great frame. Has already proven that he's a great talent. So we're I didn't even read this part. So good job, Ian. Good job. But we definitely know that Braylon Trice has all the talent in the world. He's just not putting it together for some reason right now. Not a fan of Trey Henderson. It is what it is. He's a very athletic back. He has some good vision here and there. I don't see holistically him being a top tier NFL back. And that's okay. Again, I am harsh with my grading scale because we see how many players don't actually end up being the guy for a team. There's only 32 legitimate starting, or maybe at most 64 legitimate rotational starting running backs in the NFL. I don't think Trey Henderson, especially like with this deep of a running back class, beats out all 64 of them. You know, there's just, I don't know. He might be a good running back for a little bit. I just don't see him as a longer term option. That's why I wouldn't take him in the second round. Still think the Colts could use a running back, but I'd take Marshawn Lloyd at this point. We got the Green Bay Packers going JT Tuimoloau. Don't think they need another one, but I think they're just saying, hey, this is BPA. Rashawn Gary might be getting $35 million a year, or we can get JT Tuimoloau and continue developing. It's an intriguing roll of the dice, but we'll see what happens there. I don't know how I would honestly approach that because JT is a very good player. Another player who has been actually rising up my board. He's there at, where is he? JT Tuimoloau. Why am I tripping balls? Where is he at? The number 61 on my board. You know, for where he was, he's been moving up a lot too. But he needs a lot more development than even a guy like Chop Robinson. This is a good spot that he could end up sitting if you want to give a shorter term contract to Rashawn, but I doubt it. Vikings going Will Shipley. I do think running back's a big issue for the Vikings. I think cornerback is an even bigger issue for the Vikings. Their secondary is complete butt cheeks, especially as time progresses when Harrison Smith continues to getting older. Texas going Michael Hall. A little bit too small for me to go after a D tackle of his size for the Texans. I want someone who could be a space eater. I'd rather go after Tavondre Sweat personally. You have the Falcons going Xavier Worthy. JJ McCarthy, that honestly might be his Roman Wilson, but maybe just wait a little bit longer for Roman Wilson. I don't think it's a bad pick by any stretch, but that's me putting in my 2 cents right there. We got Tampa Bay Buccaneers going Cam Ward, quarterback out of Washington State. Doesn't really fit the system. I really like Cam Ward. We're trying to get him on the show right now because Brennan obviously plays with him. So again, stay tuned for that interview at the end. But Cam Ward is he's an amazing quarterback. I just don't know. With the way the Buccaneers have been playing, I'd rather get a legitimate game manager than someone who has so much upside with Cam Ward. I'm saying for both sides that there might be a better fit. Titans going Cooper DeJean. Amazing, because I think that he could play safety or a slot extremely well, and he's an instant upgrade on special teams. Rod Moore. Haven't seen enough about Rod Moore to give a legitimate opinion on this. I think safety in a Wink Martindale system is honestly something I would value a little bit lower. Back when he was the DC, they continued taking later round safeties, and they were very, very effective. So I'd prefer to go after that route or sign a higher end one in free agency. With the safeties in this class, you could totally do this, but I'm not going to give my personal opinion on someone who I haven't fully graded. I think Steelers can use a center, but it's not going to be Zach Frazier for me. He's a good player, and honestly, he does close in on that gap, but I think Graham Barton's still on the board. Easily going to be taking him over Frazier. Frazier's still, again, good player, but he doesn't have nearly the talent level to warrant being taken up this high. Barrett Carter for the Patriots, first linebacker off the board. Not going to complain about it because I think Sion Taki's the guy who's there. Whoever the hell the linebacker is, I'm tripping. He definitely needs to be replaced, and Barrett Carter would be a great fix for that. Chargers are going Tyrod Hopper. He's going to be a pure pass rusher, so I don't think that he'll end up being a good fit for the Chargers because naturally you want a bigger, meatier dude there. I'd rather go after, well, to be fair, there's not really many of them in this class, but Tommy Eichenberg is going to be a great fit here. Essentially, you want him to be the next Eric Kendricks on the team. Then we got the Rams going Ben Sinnott. I'm not fully sold on Ben Sinnott. I don't really like him that much. I can see why some people do, but he's actually really underwhelming as a blocker, which is weird because, his high-level tape is great, just on down-to-down basis. Randomly, it's just not good in that category. I think the Rams are very good at sniping value down the line, apparently. Like guys like Puka Nacua, I think they'll be perfectly fine at the offense on the offensive side. If you want to get this is honestly not a bad spot for Quinn Ewers to develop. He would be such a good understudy. And at this point, I would totally do that. Much better value, too. Packers going Tyler Nubin. That's a great pick. Big fan of that one. So, definitely big fan. You got the Eagles then going Malachi Corley. I don't think they need another. He's pretty much Rashee Rice. And actually, I've talked to a couple other people about him. A lot of people agree he's Rashee Rice, but just worse. And I didn't really think Raw's my buddy, so I should be pretty damn biased towards him. I didn't think he was worth a second round pick. I thought he was a good system fit to go into where Juju Smith-Schuster was, and he's been a good system fit. Malachi Corley, this is not a good system unless you lose A.J. Brown. Because he's the bigger, bulkier, after-the-catch guy. I think that just people are overrating him, and that's okay. Again, with more tape, of course, maybe I'll be wrong, but with the tape I have seen, been very, very underwhelmed with Malachi Corley. I would rather go after a deep threat at this point, looking at a guy like Jermaine Burton as a great option. You have the Browns going Leonard Taylor. He should not be here, but if he is, pop the champagne bottle, hallelujah. Graham Barton for the Jags. I would just pray that the Steelers would do this, but this is a great move for the Jags who love athletic offensive linemen. Bengals going McKinley Jackson. They could always use some extra help on the defensive interior too, and gain some good depth there with a 325-pounder. He's been a little bit off this year in terms of production, but we'll see as to why when we do our re-eval on him, but he was a top 5 defensive tackle for me at the draft. Then we got Cooper Beebe for the Seahawks. Excellent value. I don't think they need to do this because of the fact they are really good at sniping value down the board, but their sniping value here as well. He's a good player. Ravens going Leatu Latu. I'll scroll down a little bit, even though there's a lot of my guys who are still on the board right there. Oh, we got the block notifications. I'll talk about this, and then we'll get rid of that. But Leatu Latu, I actually regraded him, and to be honest, I just don't see it. I could, of course, again, be wrong, but he has a lot of talent. It doesn't look translatable to the NFL. The statistics are amazing. I'm very happy for him. I just personally don't see it. I just don't. I really don't. I don't see the power. Speed of power is just not there. The impact on the line of scrimmage is not there for someone who's 265 pounds. He's a unique athlete, but again, I never was fully sold on Leatu before. Still not fully sold. And again, that's not saying he's a bad player by any stretch, but compared to these other edge rushers who have a lot more translatable tape, I'm going to go with that. That just is what it is. But we are going to go back to the grind and end up taking out this block notification button, which I pray to God PFN would get rid of. All right, going on to pick number 58, the Eagles get Jordan Jefferson. Surprisingly not Mekhi Wingo in this situation. They don't need D tackle. I don't, again, love you, Ian. I don't really understand the need for defensive tackle for the Eagles when, maybe Fletcher Cox is going to be gone, sure, but second round when you probably have the best defensive interior in the NFL, that feels a little bit hot. I'm not a huge fan of that personally. I think going after a developmental a cornerback is going to be a little bit more valuable at this point. And I know we've gone after edge rusher already for the Eagles, and now wide receiver. Running back definitely should be on their list too. Troy Fautanu going to be right guard for the Lions. I love Troy Fautanu. He's right here, number 36 on my board. I don't know how he'd transition to right guard, so it'd be tough to say a left tackle is going to move to right guard and instantly be a starter, but I'm fully down to see how that ends up. Bills going Adisa Isaac. I've seen a lot of people show a lot of love for Adisa. Another one of those players. I think he's a little undersized. And, I see Chop Robinson pop off a little bit more than he does. And to be fair, Chop was taken significantly ahead of him, but with such a stacked edge, well, it's not even a stacked edge class, but there's just a lot of gems in this class. I would prefer to wait to take one. Cowboys going Trey Benson. That's an excellent value pick, so not going to shame that at all. Chiefs going Max Melton. I like it. Max Melton, I don't know if I've actually included him in here yet. I actually did, 85. I'm rebuilding my board right now from scratch, but Max Melton is a really top-tier corner. He's not necessarily going to be a starter in my eyes just yet. That's why he is in around that top 100 range, but maybe not top 50. But good player. Good player. I'm not going to shame a team for developing their corner room. Niners going Blake Fisher. This is an excellent move. Blake Fisher looked spectacular the other day, or this past week, and that's exactly what you should be looking for. So good for Blake Fisher. He did a great job. Miami Dolphins going Christian Haynes out of UConn. For those of y'all who don't remember, Christian Haynes is my number 11 player in the draft. And honestly, when I'm thinking about it, Braylon Trice will probably be moving there, so he's still going to be a top 10 player in the draft. There's a lot of players who I really, really like here. So Christian Haynes, excellent pick, obviously. I'm really biased on that one, but it's what it is. Bears going Jasheen Davis. He's been a good player for Wake Forest. He's been a pretty high stat patter too. So excited to see what he's going to be when I go do a deep dive on him. But I want to see the progression over the year for somebody who I didn't fully see last year. Terrion Arnold's a solid corner. I think the Panthers could totally use it as well. Too many injury-prone corners on their roster, so getting extra depth is always a good thing. Don't like the fact they got rid of Keith Taylor. Don't get that one, but that's a topic for another time. Jeremiah Trotter should not be a third-round pick, but Seattle scoops him up. Great job. Chris Jenkins for the Raiders. Excellent value. Obviously, I have him as a first-round pick. Dante Corleone is a monster selection for Arizona. He has great pocket push, so I love what Dante Corleone could bring to a team that's very desperate for defensive interior. Jatavian Sanders shouldn't be here, but, we ball. Good for them. Rook Rojo, intriguing. I think he's more of an edge rusher than anything, even though he's 295. He doesn't play like a really good defensive tackle, and his statistics haven't been too good this year for that reason. He's been a boss at edge rusher, so I hope it's not another DeMarvin Leal situation. Jets going Quinn Ewers. There you go. He shouldn't be here, obviously, but the Jets get their QB and their tackle. Keith Randolph Jr., intriguing, but I think that maybe there might be some better defensive interiors on the board. Keith Randolph's still very talented. Illinois has some good dudes on that front. Mekhi Wingo, speaking of Mekhi Wingo from earlier, Cardinals go back-to-back defensive interior. They could definitely use it. You got Quinyon Mitchell here. I wasn't a fan of him, just personally. Not a huge fan, but I do think corner's a good need for the Falcons to get a corner too. Rocket Sanders is going to be a nice addition there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He has 242 pounds and moves like he's 202. Just a super unique player. And where's he on my board? Where did I put him? Because I'm a big fan of him. Rocket Sanders, number 46 overall. Oh my God. It happened again, dude. I'm going to sue PFN for having so much irritation here. We're going to just do one more pick about talking about this. Arizona Cardinals, Brandon Dorlus, another defensive interior at 290 pounds. Intriguing. You're pretty much going to be replacing Cam Thomas at that point, which doesn't make sense because Cam Thomas is pretty solid. But Brandon Dorlus, to be fair, is a very top tier pass rusher. So got to show some love to him. So the Giants then go Bucky Irving, and I'm a big supporter of this one. Bucky is also pretty high up on my board. Now I have like PTSD of hitting that damn notification bell so many times. But just still a phenomenal player. I don't know where I have him. Oh, right here at 57. So still great player, great value. Steelers then going Tyler Guyton. Been saying it for a while. We need a right tackle upgrade, and we're going to get one here. So very excited to see what he could bring to the table. Jordan Morgan for the Patriots. Nice, consistent veteran. That ACL tear really broke my heart, but still, the Patriots need tackle help, and he's a good addition. Kalen Bullock is somebody who I consider in the first round for the Chargers. Big fan of it. I love it. He's a ball hawk, deserves to be a top-tier prospect, and I'm pretty sure, 90% sure I have him. Yeah, number 27 on my board, so tell me how you really feel, right? Rams then going Zach Zinter, him and Steve Avila, that'd be ridiculous. That's a really good value, too. Audric Estime is a great Packer. I think that'd be an excellent selection. He fits the mold. He fits the aggressiveness. He just needs to hit the hole faster. He does just have a little too much patience and goes up to the line of scrimmage a little too slowly, and that's where he has his downfalls, but I feel like that's a pretty easy fix. Cole Bishop for the Broncos, too slow. I really like Cole Bishop as a player, but he's just too slow. I think he's going to run the 4.6s or 4.7s. Just a little bit worried about that. Then you got Omar Spates. I haven't finished up my linebacker reviews. I think the Browns could definitely use some extra linebacker help. Roman Wilson, it sucks to see him go here, but I do like Roman Wilson quite a bit, waiting for some more All-22 on him because good frame, good athleticism, and he's been electric there with J.J. McCarthy. I would love to have seen him go to the Falcons where, did they have a pick already in this round? I think they did. So I'd personally wish that they went after Roman Wilson rather than going Xavier Worthy earlier, just like I said. Jalen McMillan to the Bengals. Don't really think it's that big of a need. The wide receivers, like, far from an issue. I'd go and target for the Bengals. There's a lot of other stuff I'd do. Then you got Jurosik, another Stanford tight end. Obviously, I used to play with, I've actually been able to have the pleasure of playing with the other Stanford tight end, Colby Parkinson, that's on the Seahawks, and adding Jurosik does feel kind of in line with what the Seahawks would like. He's actually a pretty good blocker too. Intriguing to see where he'd end up. I don't think he's a third-round pick, but still solid value. Jawan Briggs, I've not studied Jawan Briggs. Obviously, I've seen him in person because I got to see Cincinnati last year here at SMU, but he didn't pop off as much as maybe I would hope for a top 100 pick. Then you got Jalen Ford here to the Texans. He's a solid linebacker. I'm not going to shame it too much. Then we got Jalen Polk. Intriguing. Another Washington wide receiver. I think wide receiver is a good position to go for the Lions. Haven't studied Jalen Polk, so I can't give you any official feedback. Joshua Farmer is a good D tackle, though. He is a stat machine, so very excited to see what he's going to do in the NFL. Very excited to give him a grade as well. And then you got Kiran. I have not seen this guy, but I have seen his name pop up quite a bit. But good for PFN Pro. He's trying to throw some Hail Marys on some offensive tackles from smaller schools. Chiefs get the monster Xavier Legette. He's going to be a beast. 227 pounds, 6'3" burner. He doesn't move that fast on his routes as much as I wanted him to, but when the ball's in his hands, my God, this guy could take it to the house. He's a freak. David Van, one of my favorite characters in this class. I think he really needs to go to a situation where they can kick him inside. I actually did my official eval on him today. He's been Christian Haynes' nightmare, and I think he's going to work really well as a hybrid 3 and 5 tech. I don't like him in wide 9. He's not very athletic. He's not very bendy, but like those reps where he knows how to get good leverage and just take his leverage to his advantage. He has some, top 32 in the NFL type of plays on the defensive line, but they're just a little too few and far between for me. You got the Niners also going Josh Simmons out of the Ohio State University. He's been playing really well. I don't think he's going to come out because of the fact that I think he will end up wanting to go back to school, get a little bit better of a grade with a better quarterback, but is what it is. Round number 4, Tyler Barron. He's been one of my guys, and I actually re-evaluated him today as well. I'm a little bit worried about him. His IQ, like he does sometimes not understand where the ball is, but more importantly, the motor seems to have dipped down a little bit. One of my favorite things about him was that he played to the end of the rep every single down last year. This year, I do see him taking his foot off the gas at the end of some reps. He was tracking down a quarterback, I'm forgetting who, and he could have easily tackled him behind the line of scrimmage, and he just was jogging. He was just jogging, and the quarterback scrambled for a first. Genuinely concerned about that, but the Bears could definitely use his talent level. Xavier Thomas is right behind. Actually, I think he's tied with Tyler Barron grade-wise. I'm a huge fan of Xavier Thomas. It would be a big addition for the Panthers. You got the Jets going Jaden Hicks, who's a top-tier safety, very, very underrated, so good for Ian putting him in here. Same thing with Chris Abrams-Drain. The Raiders could use all the help they can get in that category. Curtis Jacobs, he's solid, but I didn't really see too many aspects of the Penn State second level that I was overly enthused with, but Cardinals could always use some extra help there. Then you got James Williams, who's a spectacular player. He's going to go probably in that Cam Curl role. If you really want to put him somewhere for Washington, I'd be a little bit worried about there being some conflict there. Then we got Indianapolis Colts going Tavondre Sweat. That's intriguing. A big-ass dude to pair up with DeForest Buckner is never a bad idea. Torrey Horton out of Colorado State. He's a very fun player to watch. I don't know if the Jets actually could use some extra juice in that wide receiver room after pretty much losing the juice that they had, apart from Garrett Wilson, who I was a big fan of. Minnesota Vikings going Fabian Lovett. He's just been around too long. Not a huge fan of him this early. Will Shepard's a good wide receiver. Haven't studied him enough to give you an honest feedback, though. Atlanta Falcons, Darius Robinson. He's a good D lineman. Missouri knows what the hell they're doing. I don't think that they're top 100 worthy. Isaiah McGuire is not necessarily top 100. Darius Robinson's far from it. Tommy Eichenberg, already talked about him. He's a top 32 player for me. And him going to the Bucks, not going to shame it by any stretch. Tavion Nicholson. I don't think that Illinois secondary is that good, but there are some dudes who do pop off here and there. I don't know if it's Tavion, but I haven't studied him in all 22 yet. Dwayne Carter has been kind of a bum to me. No disrespect to him as a person, but as a player, don't really like him at all. Jalen Daniels is super fun. So here's a Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, does not really fit the system that we need to run, but at the same time, we need to change up the system. So maybe Jalen Daniels is the catalyst for that. Riley Leonard, I'm not super enthused with either. I've been watching him this year. The hype is just out of control. I'm glad that Ian's kind of tempered down those expectations and put him here in the top 120 rather than the top 20. And we got the Chargers going Blake Watson out of Memphis. Haven't seen Blake Watson, so I can't tell you an honest opinion, but didn't even know he was considered remotely this high. There's still some top-tier running backs like Marshawn Lloyd, who I think are significantly better. You got Jack Nelson, who I think is okay. Wisconsin lineman at this point does feel pretty on brand for the Rams, so I don't think that's a bad pick. Bo Braid out of Maryland. I think that there's just better DBs at Maryland, but I'm not going to shame the Packers from continuing to develop with high upside safeties. You got Jordan Birch, who's a phenomenal player. Oregon knows how to organize their D-line, and not going to shame a team, especially at this range, for getting high upside players. DJ James just needs to get his weight up, but he's a very, very talented corner. He would be, I think he was on the fringe of my top 10, but he definitely deserves to be in it if he ends up getting his weight up. Donovan Edwards kind of feels a little bit overkill at this point. You have Tyler Algier there. You also have Bijan. Falcons have bigger issues, so I'd prefer to go somewhere else. Like Tyler Davis, that would honestly be a really good addition for the Falcons, but Tyler Davis getting another D tackle for the Bengals seems a little bit much, but it is what it is. Seahawks going Spencer Rattler. He fits the system, but he's an asshole. Just going to call it out as it is. He's been, I know that empirically through the people who I know who have dealt with him, just not a good human being, and I don't think the NFL is a place for people who are actual bad human beings, but to be fair, we've seen quite a few of them end up sticking around. Baltimore Ravens, Layden Robinson, not a fan of Layden, and I think that the Ravens could do a lot better than that. Bears going Josh Newton, incredible value. Honestly, that's really, really good value. I like that. I think this was the pick that they traded to get up into Keely Ringo range. So Josh Newton for pretty much Keely Ringo. I prefer Keely, but Josh Newton's still a very good player. Jack Sawyer, highly developmental edge rusher, feels on brand for the Vikings. Buffalo Bills going Hudson Clark. He's good. He's a good safety. Very good safety for Arkansas. He stepped up really well since Jalen Catalon's been gone. Shamar Turner, Texas A&M has some really top-tier talented defensive interior guys, so not going to shame that pick at all. And the Cowboys can use some extra defensive interior help to just add extra depth there. Matt out of Pittsburgh, I haven't studied him fully yet, but the Chiefs could definitely use some extra help on those bookend tackles. Cedric Gray to the Niners. Don't think they need to invest this early in linebacker. They're doing a good job by spending later picks on him. Denver Broncos going Jamari Trash. I'm just kidding, it's Thrash. I haven't seen him in all 22, but receiver doesn't feel like the need the Broncos have at the moment. So just got to call it, again, as it is. Tanner Bordellini, I honestly kind of would draft him for that name. Haven't studied him yet. Bears could use it. Brendan Rice has been improving every single year. I think this is still too early. And I think the Browns, I don't think he'd beat out DPJ. Then we got Denver Broncos going Jordan Travis. Intriguing, but I still don't think that Jordan Travis is that good of a quarterback because we've seen the major inconsistency with his game. Thor Griffith, that is a baller-ass name. I just draft him at 132 just to get the name on my roster. I'm just going to be 100% honest. And then I wouldn't even put Griffith on as his last name on his jersey. I would just put Thor. Like, watch those jersey sales go up. Then you got Thor and you got Zeus. That'd be ridiculous. Then we got Arizona Cardinals going Isaiah Adams. I really like Isaiah Adams too. This is excellent value for him. Same thing with Johnny Cornelius. I think he should end up being probably an interior offensive lineman, not necessarily the most value or not the most athletic guy, but for value, very, very good. Very good because he can play tackle too in case of injury. Tyke Smith out of Georgia, he just has not been healthy enough but the Colts do need secondary help. Jason Marshall would have been a better pick in my opinion, but the Broncos snag him here. Excellent value. Eagles going Aaron Casey out of Indiana. I think that Andre Carter out of Indiana is a better player, but Aaron Casey's still a talented linebacker for a team that needs some linebackers. Jalen Noel, I haven't seen enough of him, but I still thought Xavier Hutchinson was better than Jalen Noel. Then we got Braden Fiske out of Florida State, another Florida State D tackle. At some point, we got to just say chill on those. But Mike Sainstrill, he's a slot corner for Michigan. He's a good player. I don't know if the Eagles really need that, though. They're pretty resourceful when it comes to their slots. Juice Wells, he's just not been performing very well this year, but no pun intended. I think that the Carolina Panthers could use somebody like that. I just think that you're starting to get too slow with your receiving core. Antoine A.D., both those guys, not necessarily the most athletic guys on planet Earth. And, I'd rather get a deep threat. J. Michael Sturdivant is a very athletic player. I actually had one issue, and I'm 95% sure with J. Michael Sturdivant I was talking about when it came to this. Very good route runner. My one issue with him is that it almost looked like he was just running the route he was assigned, not the route that was best for the play. Like he looked like he was running a route, not getting open. A lot of high-end NFL players know the route that they're supposed to run, know the timing where they're supposed to be, but they'll modify it slightly to actually get open. I'll see him running like a sharp cut on like a double move when there's no corner there. And I get, again, the timing issue, but there's just certain moments where I was like, you are not doing what's best for the play. But he's an amazing high-level talent. I totally think he can get past that, and that's why I fully support this pick. But, I have my reservations here and there. Thomas Harper, he's a good DB. Honestly, I'd be very happy if the Steelers could snag him at this point. Jared Brown, haven't seen enough of him, but Patriots can always get some extra help there. Love Ashton Galote. He had 10 pressures like last week, so good for him. He's been an absolute stud, so good for him. Chargers could use that edge help and better than Tyron Hopper pick. James Thompson, haven't studied him personally, haven't seen him pop off. Kyrie Jackson's a very good corner for Oregon. I think he's on the Senior Bowl watch, so we'll see what happens there. Sebastian Castro, I have not seen him, so I think DB's a good move for the Saints. Have not seen him personally. Ty Hamilton's a beast. I have him on my watch list. He's performing better than Michael Hall is, and this would be a steal. Daquan Hardy out of Penn State. I love Penn State DBs. I think Hardy lets a little bit more coverage, or a little bit more separation than what I'd like, but at this value, it's very good value. Zy Alexander, haven't seen enough of him. He hasn't popped off enough for me to get excited about him, of course, and no all 22 on him. David Gbenda, I don't really believe that this is the right move. You got some other linebackers that are potentially available that are better than David. I'm forgetting his name. He's on Oregon right now. I think it's Justin Jacobs. He would be a better move in my opinion, just because he's more athletic, but is what it is. Tyreek Chappell, Texas A&M has some good corners, and the Ravens could use some good secondary help. I haven't studied Tyreek, though. Danny, same thing. I haven't studied him either, but the Cardinals getting some extra edge rush help, not a bad idea. Speaking of Andre Carter, he's a linebacker. Apparently, he's listed as an edge rusher, but he's been playing a lot of off-ball linebacker too. The Lions could use that and actually have him pair up in that linebacking room. So good versatility right there. Braylon Allen. People are going to lose their shit at this, but I think this is an excellent spot for him to go, and I think it's a good system fit. So not going to complain about that. Devin Neal is amazing. I think he'd be a great backup for Isaiah Pacheco. Good value. Kamari Lassiter for the Vikings. Great value. Brevin Spanford is a top 64 player for me. So where's he at? Number 55. So I'm just going to let that speak for itself. Malik Mustafa. I've heard a lot of good things about him, but I haven't studied him myself. Nazir Stackhouse for the Dolphins. This is good value for him. And defensive interior, not a bad idea. Michael Pratt for the Jaguars. I think that Nathan Rourke's really good. Michael Pratt's still very solid. Xavier Weaver, he's a good player. He has some issues in terms of the streakiness of his play, but he's a good player. I think that would be a very on brand with the Rams to get someone who has that type of talent. Blake Corum this far down seems a little bit of a stretch. I have dropped him considerably because he was like a top 40 player for me. Now he's down to 63 because I don't see the explosiveness after his ACL tear, but this is still pretty far down for me. Kyler Baugh, not necessarily over the moon about, but we'll see what happens when more tape comes out. Justin Wally, I don't blame the Commanders scoring defensive back. I love Minnesota players, so I'm not going to complain too much there. Steve Linton's okay. Again, we're kind of nitpicking here. This is very late picks. I do not like the tackles for Utah, so I'd be scared shitless to put him on my same roster. Nate McCollum, I think is he Zion's brother? I'm trying to remember. But North Carolina does have some really good cats in that receiving core. Dalen Dotson. I've not seen him personally, so good job for Ian for always finding some good guys down the line. Cornelius Johnson's a good wide receiver. Just hasn't really stepped up to the plate the way I want him to. Bo Limmer's a stud. Where do I have Bo? Bo's at number 43 on my board. So obviously the Buccaneers steal somebody there. You got Jaheim Bell, who should have went way earlier too, but Eagles are balling. Brandon Coleman's a good tackle to guard transfer, and especially this value. Tim Smith. Tim Smith's a good player. Steelers snagging Alabama DTs down the board. Them and Wisconsin DTs on brand. Bryce Yates out of UConn. I love UConn, and Bryce Yates has actually been a pretty solid player. You got Cade Stover here for the Chargers. This is good value, and I wasn't over the moon about Cade Stover. Eric Phillips, another D tackle from Cincinnati, feels a little bit forced at this point. Other players who I have on the board right now. See, Jonah Monheim would be a great pick for him. Do I still have top 32 guys on the board? I don't remember Johnny Wilson being selected, but I'm sure he was, and I'm just tripping. But, looking at it, he's probably not taken yet. Joe Milton's still on the board. At this point, that'd be a pretty good backup for the system too. But other players, I don't think anybody else has not been selected from this range. But Marshawn Lloyd, there's just better options. And you motherfuckers. All right, I'll be back again. Packers going Joshua Gray feels pretty on brand. He's going to be kicking to the inside. Good depth player right there. Don't think he'll end up lasting at tackle in the NFL. You got Colin Oliver for the Saints. He is not performing as well as another linebacker that's slipping my mind for Oklahoma State, but getting extra pass rush help would be a good idea, even though I think that him listed as an outside linebacker, because I have never studied Colin Oliver, means that he's going to be off the ball, but they've been getting a lot of pressure from that linebacker spot. Jamon Dumas-Johnson's great value here, and keeping a Georgia player in Athens is not too shabby. And then you got Patrick Paul. I'm not a fan of Patrick Paul at all. Is what it is. 182 to the Jaguars, not a bad pick. Jalen Conyers is a beast. He's just not popping off the way maybe we wanted him to. Colby Young. Seahawks. getting another wide receiver feels a little bit forced. I don't think he'd make the team. Drake Nugent's a very talented player. That's a great pick for the Browns, but I would kind of hate it for Nugent because he's going to be behind another top tier young interior offensive lineman. TJ Tampa's a beast. He should have been taken away earlier, but Saints are prospering. Omari Thomas is high upside. I do like the Lions snacking him down here. Deuce Chestnut's a solid corner for this value, so not against that. Will Howard going above. Will Howard being the selection above Joe Milton's a big surprise to me, but, we ball. Kansas City Chiefs going Jaden Daniels. Again, I mean, he doesn't feel like he's an NFL quarterback. He's a good college quarterback. That's it. Alfred Collins, haven't studied him, but, I do love me some Texas defensive linemen. Huggins Bruce, again, Louisville's not a team I've really put high on my radar for top-tier players, but they've been able to light it up. Miles Harden, South Dakota. Say it with me. No all 22. But, the Patriots definitely seem on brand for that type of stuff. Danny Stutzman's okay. He's a solid linebacker. I don't know if he'd actually make the roster. Gabe Hall, I think he might be related to Gabe Itch, but we'll see what happens with that one. He's a talented enough defense interior. The Broncos just could use all the help they can get. Jay Stanley, he's all right. He's not too shabby. Cam Butler for the Texans. So sorry for those of y'all who are listening in the car. Jay Stanley is a safety out of Southern Miss for the Cowboys. He's okay. Cam Butler, edge out of Virginia for the Texans. At this point, you're getting way too many defensive linemen. Lad McConkey for the Commanders at this point is good value. I like that. No. Oh. I thought he was taken. Johnny Wilson goes at 199. So almost 100 times lower in value compared to why I have him on my board. I think Johnny Wilson is a super weapon. And now he pairs up with Keon Coleman again. There you go. Junior Colson, very good value. And he's going back to the Michigan defensive coordinator there. And Baltimore, Eric All is a very talented tight end. I would worry that his production would actually potentially put him as a competitor to Michael Mayer. And at 201, that's very good value. Gavin Bartholomew has been talented tight end since day one for the Pittsburgh, let's say Penguins, but Pittsburgh, what are the name? Panthers. There we go. But the Texans could use extra tight end help. Trey Knox, not too shabby of a tight end. I don't think that he's that bad of an option. Cleveland Browns could always use some extra depth there. Justin, you're getting some D-tackle depth for the Buccaneers. Not going to complain about that either. The center for Clemson, Will Putnam. Again, at this point, you're just pretty much filling gaps, and I don't think that's a bad idea. Jaquavius Marks is a very good running back, and this is excellent value. Feels very similar to when y'all got, what's his name from USC, Keontae Ingram. So feels very similar in terms of that value. Sean Martin, West Virginia, D-tackle for the Steelers. It's not Wisconsin. It's not Bama. It's not going to be the Steelers. Marshawn Lloyd, obviously I have him now as what? Do I have him as a top 40 player? I have him at number 38 on my board, so I'm just going to leave that there. Tyler Van Dyke for the Chargers does feel actually pretty good. It's a system fit, so good fit there. Patrick Jenkins out of Tulane. Tulane is a very talented roster. Again, Broncos could use all the help they can get. David Walker out of Central Arkansas. He's a good player, too. He's a really good player. That's a good value for the Packers. They sniped the kid out of Bowling Green last year down the line. They're going to do the same with David Walker. Ricky Barber out of UCF. You're just kind of getting dudes now for the Texans. Browns going Dylan Laub out of New Hampshire. Still think there's better running backs on the board. Don't think they need to snag one down the line. I think they're good with getting more rotational guys down the board. Now we got Tyreen Powell out of Rutgers. Haven't studied him, but extra linebacker depth, never a bad idea. Tonka Hemingway. Bengals get their third D tackle of the draft. A little bit worried about that. Deontay Craig. Haven't seen him pop off, but good depth there for the Ravens. Baltimore going Jordan Watkins. He's been pretty solid there for Ole Miss. See, that's where I see the good value for the wide receivers. Brian Thomas should go way earlier than this. Glad that he got tossed in here, though. But Titans get an absolute steal with a super weapon there from LSU. Justin Harris, good DB out of Cincinnati. Good value here. Mike Nowitzki out of Kansas. He had some troubles, but he's not, I don't know if he's NFL ready, but at 220, sometimes it's worth taking a shot. You got the Texans going Jared Wiley, who I think is an absolute stud. I'm going to probably be putting him in my board before I get to see some all-22 on him, but he's a good player, really underrated. Micah Abraham, DB out of Marshall. I love my Marshall players, so fun to see them here to the Niners. And then to end it off, Jarius Monroe Quarterback out of Tulane for the Dolphins. I've already highlighted how good Tulane has been, even without their starting quarterbacks. So definitely a testament to the defense and the coaching. That is going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. Check out the interview right now. But for those of y'all who just want to see the mock draft, see you later. Peace. What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video. And today we're bringing back one of the most amazing interviewers that I've had in Brennan Jackson. Brennan, welcome to the channel. Give yourself a shout out and let them know who you are and where to find you.
Awesome. This is Brennan Jackson. I play edge over at Washington State University in my 6th year.
There we go.
Long time. All my handles are Brennan_Jackson, Instagram, Twitter. Find me all over. Super excited to get this interview again.
Oh, yeah. No, so you've already come on the show, one of our first repeat guests, and then it's going to be fun continuing to go on and on. Obviously, we're going to actually break down your game tape last week versus Oregon State at another point in another video, so stay tuned for that as well. But I want to talk about it because y'all had a scrappy fest versus Oregon State, a team that just brought in DJ Uiagalelei from Clemson, has a ton of hype going with them. Tell us how that game went, because obviously not everything went to plan. It seemed like it was a battle of momentum, and it certainly seemed to come down to the end.
Yeah, I mean, just starting out, Oregon State is a well-coached football team. They're one of those teams that don't beat themselves typically, and they knew that coming to that game. And an O-line that's really stout. I mean, a lot of guys who've been around for a long time. Their left tackle, right tackle, I've played against them 3 times now. Joshua Gray, just as good as Tulisi Fauga. 2 guys who are great competitors. And then obviously, like I said, DJ coming in from Clemson, a lot of experience over there. And I think really this is a team that can do a lot of damage in the Pac-12. Obviously, we all know what's going to happen after the season. But it was a really fun matchup. And like you said, very scrappy till the end.
Yeah. So obviously, Oregon State, tons of talent, but a lot of people look over Washington State. One, I got to admit, y'all's uniforms are some of the coolest in college football. That gray and red combination, excellent. So I am curious. So Oregon State was a scrap fest. Do y'all think you can get up to the level of Oregon? Because we saw them absolutely annihilate a team with a ton of momentum, a ton of height in the Colorado Buffaloes.
Yeah, going into the season, we knew that there's going to be a lot of tough challenges coming up. Obviously, Oregon State being the first Pac-12 game, a tough one. A team that last year was won 9 or 10 games and really found their footing. This year, like I said, they have a lot of talent coming back, obviously grabbing some new guys in the portal. So being able to knock them off early on in the season is a huge confidence boost coming up for the next few weeks. And like I said, Oregon had a fantastic showing against Colorado. I think a team that, I think media-wise definitely hyped them up a little more than what we would think, as just watching the game, but still a very talented football team. Deion Sanders, a phenomenal coach. And, I think it just shows that any team can be beat if they're not ready to play.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, to put it bluntly, a slaughter of a team that, I am extremely high on Shedeur Sanders. I was a very big fan of him coming into the year, had a lot of expectations. This was one of those games where I already knew the battle of the trenches was already decided. Guys like Brandon Dorlus are absolute monsters. And I'm curious if you have watched any of Brandon Dorlus before I continue.
Oh, absolutely. He's one of those guys. I love to look around the league and see who's doing really good. Locke, one of the guys from UCLA, Brandon Dorlus for a while now, has been really effective over there in Oregon. I think each of them have their own unique qualities that make them so great. And like I said, Brandon Dorlus, he's just a fierce competitor and he's going to run through you. So just seeing how he was able to kind of work around the Colorado offensive line was really, it was a masterclass up front.
I know. And there have been a lot of high-performing Pac-12 edge rushers. You, RJ Stone, obviously, I'll let y'all talk about yourselves a little bit more. But going around the Pac-12, have you been able to study Jonah Ellis of Utah at all? His brothers, Caden Ellis, Christian Ellis in the NFL, but he was someone who honestly popped out to me the same way that you popped off on tape when I was watching Diane Henley.
Yeah, Jonah Ellis, this year, I think he's up to 5.5 sacks, had a great game last week against UCLA. So we've been watching his tape a bunch. He's one of those guys, high motor, and he has a lot of tools in his toolbox. I wouldn't say he's too big in the sense. I think he's like 6'2", 240, but he uses his body extremely well, is able to kind of dip around blockers and still has a lot of power behind him. So I'm super excited to see what he's doing. He seems like a guy that's been in the system for a while and now is really getting his shine because I think they had a couple injuries up front. But
Yeah.
Last year you saw flashes of it, and now you just see him take off.
No, it's great to see that because the thing is, a lot of people write off the Pac-12, and everybody's been putting the SEC and the Big Ten as the Big Two now, and all of a sudden, when I'm doing my top 25 rankings, it's an overload, and I mean an overload of Pac-12, soon to not be Pac-12, unfortunately, teams. So you got Washington in there, for example, Oregon, UCLA, USC. Washington State now, y'all are 4-0. You guys are climbing up those rankings too. How do you think the season's going to pan out? Because with so many damn good teams, somebody has to beat somebody else. And these juggernauts can't continue to climb the boards because they're going to start taking each other out.
It is. I mean, you look at this season, it kind of seems very poetic in a sense. There's so many. I think for a while it's been like this. The Pac-12 has so many talented football teams, and I think this year especially, you just see all of them kind of blooming into that final product, where it's like these are all teams that can make it to the playoffs and be really successful. And that's the struggle with the Pac-12 is that you have to, like you said, you have to play every single person to get through it, and it's a gauntlet, especially this year. And I think it's going to be it's going to be high octane football every single week. No matchup anyone's safe in. You have to bring it every single week, and that really reigns true in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I know. So who do you think is your biggest competitor, or maybe your top two? Because I assume USC is one of them because of how much momentum they have with that amazing quarterback that they have.
Yeah, I would say that, three of them right now for me really stand out. And like you said, USC is definitely one of those guys. They've just been super electric on offense. Caleb Williams is a magician in the backfield, and he has a great O line in front of him, putting up crazy numbers. And you got to also shout out the guys over on the west side. Can't say their full name, but they've been playing some really good football, and I commend them a lot for bringing everybody back. They had so much draft talent last year, and they made everyone basically stay for another year. And now you see them really taking off. And then obviously one more is Oregon. Bo Nix is just a technician back in the backfield, and they're lighting up the scene like we saw against Colorado. So a lot of tough offenses coming up for the rest of the year, and it's gonna be a battle each and every week. But I'm super excited what our DC has been putting in and how the guys have really bought into the system. I think each and every week we're gonna have a chance to really upset some people.
So that's the exciting thing. The fact is, y'all are still underdogs at 4-0 because of how dominant a lot of these other teams are. Now, a lot of that requires a lot of determination and a lot of self-improvement. Now, you just mentioned earlier that it is your 6th season in college. What are you still doing? Because a lot of people say old dogs can't learn new tricks, but with you, I continue seeing that high motor and that high energy and that improvement. So let us know, what are you working on at the moment? What do people think, what your coaches think you should be working on as well?
The biggest thing is just continuing to be more active in my pass rush. I think something each and every week I work on is just how am I using my hands? Where am I placing them? Where am I trying to get to? How am I taking my angles correctly? And each and every week there's a new challenge, new offensive linemen. They all set differently, and it's being able to really dissect each and every opponent and how I can effectively attack them. And so I think it reigns true where it's like you see guys who are older and they kind of stay the same. For me, I never want to be complacent where I'm at, and I'm really honest with myself. I don't go into any game thinking, oh, if I do this, this, and this, I've had a perfect game. I don't think any game I've had has ever been perfect. There's always something I can get better at, and every small detail I look at and I scrutinize to the point where it's an obsession almost. So yeah, 6 years. I think it's been fantastic for me. Obviously, 2 of those were years I couldn't really do anything. But these past 4 especially have been super transformative, not only my body, but how I approach the game and how it's slowed down over the years.
Yes, of course. There's a lot of mentality that a lot of people don't understand when it comes to the game. And sometimes people see maybe an edge rusher bowl over a tackle, and that instantly makes them a top 15 prospect. But when in reality, NFL tackles are smarter than that. They have better bases than that. And it requires the ability to use your hands properly, to get the right angles, and to make the right moves at the right time that a lot of people don't fully understand. So it's cool to see the intricacies of the game right there. And so I got to ask about this right tackle you just faced. We're going to bounce back to the Oregon State game. So I call him Taliesin. I'm not 100% sure if that's how you say his name. You pronounce it differently. I'm going to trust your pronunciation of it because, again, I'm not an English major. That's okay. But Fuaga, the right tackle, to me, he's been my number 12, and I believe he might be closing in on my top 10 player in the draft. Not tackle, player in the draft. Was a huge fan of him based on his tape, especially versus USC last year. Was a huge fan of Tuli Tuipulotu in the offseason. So got a lot of respect for Fuaga for his dominance versus Thule. Now, I'm curious what your experience was because he had a 95.6 overall pass blocking grade and was one of the best, even though you and RJ are absolute monsters and still got your own.
Yeah, he is, one of those guys that you think comes around not so often. He is super intelligent with how he sets himself up for each and every play. And I think what's so deceiving about him is he's a bigger guy, but his feet are lightning quick. When he gets off the ball, you basically have to match his steps or he's going to be ahead of you in the rush. And I think throughout the game, I noticed that. And that's also their offense. They're very good at disguising things and not letting you get in a comfortable rhythm pass rushing. You can't line up too wide because they're a run first team. So I think the scheme really helps out for what he's able to do in his athleticism. But overall, he's a dog. I mean, lack of better words, he's a great player. And I think your assessment of him is spot on. I think he's one of the best players, if not the best tackle I've gone against in my career here. I've gone against guys like Aljavera Tucker. I've gone against Abe Lucas, guys who've all been drafted really highly. But he just has this edge to him where if you're not spot on, he's going to beat you in those reps. And I think throughout the game, he was great competitor, and especially in the run game where it's a thing I'm trying to get better at is run stopping and being able to set edges. And there's a couple times where simply I was out of position. He was able to maul me off the ball. But then there's also times where I'm in the game and I feel myself able to kind of get to the punch first. And I think that's one of the things I tell other edges that are going against them is you have to get to punch these guys first. They're both extremely good run blockers, keep their feet moving, and really nasty dudes in the line of scrimmage. So I give him all the credit in the world. He's a fantastic player, and I'm excited to see what he does for the rest of the year.
Oh, yeah. And especially at the right tackle position, that's one of the few positions you don't see very many quality players. Not many people value the right tackle spot. A lot of colleges will kick their best tackle to the left tackle spot. So being able to see guys like Darnell Wright last year perform so well at that coveted position. Now we got Fuaga being there. Now Amarius Mims at Georgia. So there's plenty of guys that are starting to ascend to that role, but it's good to see that maybe some colleges have a little bit of faith in not protecting just the blind side, which I'm sure Tua Tagovailoa is going to be very grateful for that eventually. But I want to ask about one more offensive lineman. That is Troy Fautanu, the left tackle for Washington. Now, a lot of people, including myself, see him as a guard, but I want to hear what your thoughts are since I know that you've probably taken quite a few reps against him.
Yeah, I think in 2021 he was playing guard, and then this past season in 2022 they moved him out to tackle, and I think he's comfortable in both positions. I remember in our game he's another guy who's really quick to the punch. You got to get your hands on him before he hits you because he has that power to stop you. He's very low to the ground. I think he's about 6'4", 320, and he's a bigger dude, very stocky. You see his legs. I mean, they're pistons. But yeah, just another guy who's really, elevated his craft over the years. And I think, like you said, there's a lot of tackles in our league that are just really polished early on. And I think, especially for Michael Penix's sake, having a line like that is got to help having all the time in the world back there. But yeah, I definitely think Troy has the ability to be a top 10 tackle, if he really wants to be, or if they project him as a guard, he can do it inside as well. So just another really great competitor and a good offensive lineman I've had the privilege to go against.
So last year he played one game back at guard, and that was versus Arizona State. And the funniest thing was he was playing left guard as a tackle. You could just tell his movement skills. He was almost like making sure he was setting the edge of the pocket properly. And it was quite funny to see because there were a lot of his actual mistakes during that game came because he was playing as a tackle at the guard spot. So I was a big fan of him. He's number 37 on my board. I love that ferocity. So I like to use that term quite a bit when you get to see the aggressiveness of a player, the feistiness. That's what Fuaga has. That's what Fautanu has. Not many offensive linemen don't possess that succeed in the NFL because you got guys like Myles Garrett, TJ Watt that are so aggressive with their hands that you end up losing the rep immediately once they control the reps. So good note there. Now, I want to bounce back to Washington State. I want to talk about some other players that are on the team for you to give some shout outs to some of your boys and be able to give them the proper floor that they need.
Well, I'm going to start off just with my partner in crime, RJ. I mean, that dude has been lights out this year. I think, single-handedly in that Wisconsin game for basically 2 series just changed the whole momentum of that game. And I appreciate him for letting the ball come right to me on both of those. But just another great player, really fundamentally sound. And I think, having his dad be an NFL player for such a long time, he has that background. He understands the game really well and is very efficient with everything he does. And then moving back to the secondary, Jaden Hicks has been lights out this year. That's another guy who we've had in our system for a while now, and he's really just grown each and every year. And I think now we're seeing the just how much work he's put in. He's been fantastic, and I'm really excited to see what he does for the rest of the year. And then moving on to the offensive side, you got Cam Ward and both of our receivers, Josh Kelly and Kyle Williams, both just killing it. I mean, that last game against Oregon State, I think Cam threw maybe 5 incompletions, if I'm right. Just an absolute lights out performance. And I just, like I said with Cam earlier in our last interview, he just has a different mindset about him this year. He's seen what he's needed to see, and now he understands what the pace is, how to dissect these defenses, and really throw them apart. And then also just those catches by Josh Kelly. I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
You can't teach that stuff. That is just stick them on the gloves, I guess.
He's going to get a nice little inspection because of that. That was ridiculous. He was on his OBJ impression this past week, which is awesome. Something to note about Cam Ward, one of the things I saw in that game, and even the announcers talked about it too, the fact that he started stepping up into the pocket and maneuvering the pocket. A lot of quarterbacks like himself that are so comfortable with their maneuverability like to bail out, like to drop back farther, and being able to step up and maneuver through the pocket just allows you to be in better position and being closer to the receiver you're throwing so the ball gets there faster. It was an awesome thing to see because, again, a lot of these quarterbacks use their athleticism as a crutch rather than an asset, and it was certainly good to see that. Jaden Hicks, apart from missing 44.4% of his tackles, has been an absolute monster. I got to get on Jaden Hicks for that. He's been getting a lot of love. Got to be a hard ass here and there. But he's been an absolute monster this year. He's also been quite a few stock ups for me this year. But I'm going to let you do a final pitch, be able to tell the world who you are, because I bring you on the show, not because I can just get an athlete on the show, but because you're an awesome dude. And I like to give people who deserve a platform.
Yeah, I mean, biggest thing, I just thank you, obviously, for this opportunity to just kind of, get my name out there. Obviously, the draft is in the NFL something I've been looking forward to my entire life. It's been my dream since I was a little kid. So just seeing all the work I've been putting in get closer and closer and closer is a dream come true. But yeah, the rest of this year, we got 8 more games. Looking just to be lights out in all of those and really just perfect my craft. I mean, this is the reason why we're in college, is to get better each and every week. And I think one thing that's never going to go away is that effort. I'm never going to stop trying to get to the ball in every single play. You're never going to not see me in the frame. And I think that's my call sign. That's something that I think every NFL team, anybody who watches tape is going to be like, hey, may not have won that rep outright, but damn, he's getting to the ball every single play. So that's my big thing. And I just, like I said, I really appreciate you just, giving me the opportunity. And I look forward to the more times we hop on here.
Heck yeah, absolutely. Well, thank y'all for watching, and we're going to hop into a nice little film sesh here. So thank you so much for watching. See you guys on the far side. Peace.
Later.